Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live 10 questions with series during which we sit down with entrepreneurs and business leaders to hear about their journeys and the lessons they've learned along the way to help us in all of our journeys too. Now, today I'll be joined by Chaz Berman. He's the CEO of Growers Secret, an agriculture company that produces organic crop inputs. He'll discuss the history of the business, its mission rooted in sustainability, becoming a B Corp, and how it grew into a trusted brand for farmers all over the world. He'll also dive into the data that drove a massive rebranding, commercialization, and product diversification, as well as the experience that helped him in all of this. Before we invite him on, though, I want to remind all of you tuning in, use the comment section from wherever you're tuning in from, whatever platform you're on, use the comment section to ask us questions. And if you don't have any questions, just drop a hello or tell us where you're tuning in from. We love hearing that you're tuning in from all different parts of the world, and we'll be sure to give you a shout out right back. Now, without further ado, please join me in a very virtual, still warm, but virtual welcome for Chaz Berman. Hi, Chaz. How are you?
Hi, Kendall. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming on with us. So glad to have you. Now, I love to start off by testing our guests right from the beginning. If you could summarize Growers Secret in just one sentence, how would you do it?
A Growers Secret produces organic crop inputs that are regenerative. So they're terrific for agriculture and the environment.
Love that. Love that. Now, that doesn't count as one of our 10 questions, just so you know, but I'm ready to dive into those if you are.
Okay, now you made me a little nervous.
I started it off, threw you a curveball right from the beginning. Okay, let's start off with question number one. I want to take it back to the beginning, to 1995, with Wesley and Brian, the original founders of the company. For our viewers, the two discovered a type of mushroom in Maui that really helped stimulate plant growth. It's one thing to make this discovery, though, and another to turn it into a company, especially in such a crowded field, pun intended, by the way. What differentiated their idea from everyone else who was looking to make an organic growing solution?
So thanks so much, Kendall. It's a really good question, and there's a little tangent here. So as any good scientific discovery, a lot of times individuals are not looking specifically for that discovery. They're looking for something else, and they trip over the discovery. And in fact, that's exactly what happened here. These two scientists were interested in producing an organic nematicide, which would help eradicate nematodes that destroy agriculture all over the world. And nematodes are a funny thing. They exist everywhere in nature. They're in our stomachs. They're everywhere. But the ones that are in agriculture are not good. Yeah. And they actually failed producing that. And so they used a mushroom that a lot of people may be familiar with, chicken of the woods, really good eating. And as a result, even though the nematode eradication idea failed, they discovered they had a plant growth enhancer, which helped crops grow substantially more.
Wow. Wow. And so that, I mean, that's just a lesson in itself. Like, if you fail, that doesn't mean the door is closed. In fact, it could be a door open. I like that. I like that for anybody who's tuning in that has a great idea that they're thinking about getting off the ground. Like, if you fail, that doesn't necessarily mean it's over, right?
Absolutely.
All right, moving on to question number two. So what was the original business strategy of Growers Secret? And do you think this was a strong foundation to build from? Why or why not?
So it's a funny question, because when I took over the company, there was no business strategy. It was basically a company that was run out of a checkbook, personal checkbook. And so it took me about a year to reorganize it into an actual company with a business strategy. I would say that business strategy started with one thing, and that was trying to determine what our customers, who happen to be farmers, really wanted.
Yeah.
And that came through lots of discussions and lots of trial and error testing of products until we came up with something that worked.
Yeah, you know, for our viewers, Chaz actually joined the company in 2009 and made some big changes We're going to get into that in a second. But before we do, Chaz, you've started actually several businesses and worked your way into C-level positions and sat on the board of many companies. What's your superpower? What's the common vein that runs through all of these ventures that's made you so successful?
So, maybe some therapist would have to tell you, what my mother did to me when I was a child. But I tend to think that there are two qualities that help me. I don't know if they would help anybody else, but I have a significant amount of persistence in my personality. Mm-hmm. And so it's not that I don't give up. It's just that it takes a long time, and I have to be seriously convinced that it's time to move on. Mm-hmm. And the other piece that I learned kind of later in my business career was the ability to visualize where you wanted to end up, and then to look back on where you were, and then create the individual steps to get from where you actually were to where you were visualizing. Mm-hmm. And most of that in a business, in my opinion, takes place in spreadsheets, in financials, because numbers are your navigation.
Right.
And so if you can't do it yourself, find somebody that does understand numbers and take every step and put numbers to it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you talked about how when you joined the company, there was no real business strategy. It was kind of run out of somebody's checkbook. So what made you want to join the company? Like, what did you see in the business that you thought you could help accelerate it forward?
Well, I had the opportunity of being part of a team that had recently taken a company public. And this company was based in Hawaii. And my former CEO washed up in some penthouse overlooking Diamond Head. And so I would go to visit him, and we went to an opportunities dinner, and this business came up, and I thought, gee, what a nice lifestyle. I could fly to Hawaii every once in a while, and, maybe there's something here. And so that's kind of what started it. But really, other than Brian Hiramoto, who was the founder, his associate, Wes Chun, is a renowned scientist and PhD, and nobody really knew it when I arrived. So I had some pretty significant discussions with him. He's even on a panel for the USDA that looks at biological threats to our country, including food safety.
Wow.
So he's amazing, and he has the ability to translate the most difficult science to people like myself who can understand what he's saying. And so he was really the reason that I decided to invest my own money and raise other money, because he just was fantastic.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, question number 5, you decided to commercialize advanced biological research, the original name of the company, Liquid Compost Factor, and you rebranded it as Grower's Secret Professional. What problem were you solving by doing this, and what data or market research backed this decision?
So, really good questions. However, advanced biological research was maybe just a little bit too long for the URL.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's a fine answer.
I'm just kidding, but ABR stood for Andy, Brian, and Roger. Okay, and so it really wasn't a company. It wasn't a name. It was just something to put on a legal document. Mm-hmm. So what we did was and of course the internet is much different today, right. But we used SurveyMonkey, and we did A/B testing between Advanced Biological Research, the name, and Grower's Secret, the name. Mm-hmm. And we were able to get a hold of over 100,000 consumer emails. Wow. And so we ran a small sampling pool formula, and we were able to get a statistically significant answer. Wow. And the answer was Grower's Secret.
Yeah.
Truthfully, Kendall, some of my friends say, oh, you just adopted it from Victoria's Secret. You didn't really do any testing. It's not true. I swear, it's not true.
Hey, Grower's Secret rolls off the tongue a little bit easier, I will say.
It's interesting. It's interesting. People hear that name, Kendall, and they go, I've heard of that before. How long have you been around? So there's something in the name and the trustworthiness of the name that really rings to people.
Yeah, truly. And it hits home. It is exactly what it says it is, right? You get it right from reading the name. So I understand it. And I didn't even relate it to Victoria's Secret, just so you know. I never even related the two, but that's funny. Really quickly, I just want to say hello to a couple of hellos that are coming our way. Dirk's tuning in. Hi, Dirk. Thank you for tuning in. Hello. And we also have a hello from California. Thank you for tuning in. And if you're watching right now, be sure to let us know where you're tuning in from. We love to hear it when you're joining in from all different parts of the world, and we want to give you a shout out right back. And of course, any questions that come up through our conversation, ask them in the comments, and Chaz and I will get to them at the end of our conversation. Now, Chaz, moving right along to question number 6. Growers Secret now offers 17 products. What sort of research drove this expansion, and what lessons were learned along the way?
So another really good question, Kendall. The product development is really an art unto itself. And I think for startups, it's probably the first and most important part of getting a business going. Yeah. So we have very rigorous product development standards. And what I mean by that is we listen to our farmers, first of all, saying or explaining to us what kind of problems they have, or they point out sections in their fields that don't look quite right to them. Mm-hmm. And then talk to them about, what the results of a product may provide and what they think about it. And then we come back to the lab and we start producing many different samples. And we take them back to the farmer and we have them test them. Sometimes they test them only on small plots. When we get a little bit further down the line, then we expand the tests and test it on acres and acres. And that's really what tells us what direction to go. I would also say that in farming, and I don't think this is untrue of many other businesses, there's a core element that you almost know has to be covered by a product. And so in our case, plants just love nitrogen. And so we started with a nitrogen product, and then we did all kinds of line extensions from that nitrogen product. And that's really what has grown the company.
Yeah. One of the things I actually wanted to bring up here was you, in doing this kind of product research and testing, you've built really strong relationships and trust with your customers, your farmers in your industry. How else would you say you've built that up? Farmers all over the world, they're essential to all of our lives, and their jobs are so critical. So what would you say to other leaders about the way that you've built trust with your customers, these farmers, and what they can learn from that, no matter what industry they're in?
So it's going to sound a little trite, but just doing what you say you're going to do is the entire secret. Yeah. And this is something this is an axiom that I use in all my businesses that I've ever been in, with all my employees, with all my investors. I just do what I say I'm going to do, and that creates a huge amount of trust. Mm-hmm. And with that trust, you can do a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely. Moving right along here, question number 8: Growers Secret became a B Corporation, which requires businesses to meet specific standards of purpose, accountability, and transparency. What would you tell other founders who are considering becoming a B Corp, and what are like the challenges and benefits that come with it?
So it's a fairly new entity. I think that it was developed in Philadelphia about 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And what we really like about it is that it kind of follows that axiom, meaning, you have to have a lot of transparency in your accounting practices, in your employee practices. You have to measure the amount of trash and the amount of effluent that your company puts out. And you have to have goals for reducing those over time. And so those are really good. And for us, one of the examples that we always try and get through every year is we go out and do farming for farms that then give all that food to the homeless. Mm. So
Wow.
there's a team spirit that comes around that, and there's a real feeling of camaraderie. And all of that's great, and it's a wonderful organization and a great standard to uphold one's company to. There are a couple of small drawbacks. One is there are a lot of politics surrounding B Corps. Okay, and I think that as a CEO, it's good to be able to look past those politics. So just don't let them affect you, because a lot of people might look at B Corp as being less conservative or more liberal. But if you just look at the good that it does, that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
And then I would say that the entity itself, a B Corp, has much less experience in taking a company public than a Delaware C corporation, which is what most companies would do, right? And so there are I think there are one or two examples at this point. But if that is part of your strategy, you might want to talk to your board and make sure that the board is agreeable to being a B Corp if you're going to take it public.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Thank you. All right, question number 9, kind of along those same lines. How do you ensure both your own manufacturing process and the process of your manufacturers from which you import meets all of these kind of standards and expectations, not just for yourself and being a B Corp, but also for your farmers? Like, what processes and systems do you have in place to maintain control over the complexity of a supply chain like this one?
So Kendall, I've had the opportunity of growing 8 businesses from basically scratch, or from very small companies to very or relatively larger companies.
Yeah.
And in every case, there's always the discussion, well, how do you scale a business, and what makes it easier to scale a business? And so I frankly have had some amazing fails at installing CRMs or ERP systems in the company, right? I don't want to name any names, but he might have been a candidate for the presidency recently. Everybody has good intentions, right? And everybody works hard, and sometimes they just don't work. And what I would tell you is that the decision is always, well, do we raise more money? Do we go ahead and put in a system that will allow us to scale, or do we do it later when we get bigger? And just in my experience in startups, because ERPs and CRMs are so difficult for everybody to learn and learn well, it's much better to start right at the beginning. Just throw everybody in the hot soup and force them to make it work in a nice way. Okay.
Yeah.
Other options. And then what happens as your company grows, people become much more experienced. And of course, NetSuite has been just a boon to our company. We started with NetSuite 10 years ago, before the Oracle purchase. And, it's just been an incredible piece of software that allows us to continuously scale. When we hire another person, it's just a matter of putting on another license. And in terms of some of the complexities, we do definitely use some of the more advanced features of NetSuite, especially when it comes to forecasting. We use a module called demand planning, which is great. And we really, at this point, there is a point where management teams can run businesses by the seat of their pants. But you get into millions and millions of dollars of business, and it becomes much more risky. And so, in trying to reduce that risk, it's much better to be on a platform that allows you to manage that risk. And so, NetSuite has done that for us, swimmingly. We love it. We hope that you guys keep adding features and keep the company growing.
Well, I will be sure to pass that up to our founder, Evan Goldberg. He'll love to hear that. But that's great. Thank you, Chaz. One final question here before we open it up to the audience for some questions. I'm sure you guys have some questions. I know ERP implementation is such a huge topic that we talk about on our NetSuite platforms. I can only imagine that there's questions that will pop up from that. But before I open it up, I have one more question for you, Chaz. What are your future goals and how will you continue to leverage technology like NetSuite to meet them?
Another good question. So, individuals and companies always have sort of one foot in the present and then trying to move that other foot over into the future. Mm-hmm. And so Grower Secret, moving its foot forward, started about 4 years ago when we were talking to farmers, and they said to us, well, we love your fertilizers, but unfortunately, for organic acreage, it's fine because we get a premium for organic fruits and vegetables. Mm-hmm. But for our conventional acres, way too expensive, Chaz. So is there anything you can do? And so over the last 4 years, we've developed an organic nitrogen based on an amino acid technology that will allow us to produce it for about 7 cents less per pound than synthetic nitrogen.
Wow.
And the synthetic nitrogen market is a $66 billion annual market. And so the opportunity is immense for Grower Secret. We're right now raising a Series B to fund the rest of the science and to build a demonstration plant and a bunch of other things. So
that's great. That's great. Well, congratulations on that. And we look forward to hearing all about it. I want to definitely make sure I say, we have some hellos, quite a few hellos coming in here, actually. We have a hello from London, hello from Brazil, hi from Darlene in North Carolina, hello from Canada, from Sydney. Oh, sorry, from Montreal. It was specific, Montreal. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Love hearing from you all. Ask your questions. We will continue to answer as many as we can here in the next few minutes. Chaz, we have actually one coming in right now. Oh, I like this one. What were you using prior to NetSuite, and why did you make the switch? You kind of already answered that, but I'll let this one slide.
We were, well, first of all, we were using QuickBooks when we first started. Okay, and no diss on QuickBooks, really good program. I use it personally. But as a business grows, the ability to have a 360-degree view of everything in your business, from not only the accounting platform, but also from inventory, human relations, and more, is really nice, really helpful.
Yeah, that's great. I knew this was going to happen. Another one coming in here. What would you say is a critical piece to a successful ERP implementation? That's a good one, because I know you said you've done a few and a few of them have failed. So what would you say is like a critical piece of the pie for a successful ERP implementation?
So my suggestion would be to first make the right decision as far as an ERP is concerned. Okay, so that's really important. Spend a lot of time making sure that it meets your business needs. Some ERPs can work close to out of the box. Others that you choose would need, pretty big customization right from the beginning. I would say the second issue to consider is who's going to help you implement it. If you're going to be an outside consultant, is it, in the case of NetSuite, going to be NetSuite internal consultants? And you need to vet those people really carefully.
Yeah.
And then you need to prepare your employees. And that means a lot of conversations and a lot of discussions and a lot of here's our expectations and this is how we're going to do it. And there are going to be periods of frustration and pain. And we'll bring bagels in on those days. And then, just go at it. And of course, some organizations you really can't divide and conquer because there aren't that many people. But of course, that's another way to get through it a little easier is to assign roles to different people.
Wow, those are really, really great tips. Awesome. I think we have time for maybe one or two more. Let's get to this one. Where do you see the future of ag tech heading?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. So ag tech is already really heading in a much more precise direction. It's been heading there for about 10 years. But, you know, I see ag tech heading the same way as, or in a different way, but in the same way as medical technology. So, you know, I can see a day when nano particulates are injected into plants, and it gives us all kinds of data about what's actually happening in that plant.
Wow.
You know, it's amazing. I mean, today you think that farmers are sitting in their tractors making sure they go up and down the rows the right way, but actually they're sitting and watching YouTube the whole time because their GPS is directing their tractors, you know, and the reason is because slight variances can make a big difference in yields. And so, you know, pretty soon there'll be autonomous tractors where farmers will just press a couple of buttons and the field will be harvested.
Wow.
And, you know, this sort of fast advance of technology will drape over all of farming.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. I mean, right?
Oh, it's a really good thing, you know. You know, a lot of what farming has done, not intentionally, but it happened, had unintended consequences for our planet. And trying to pull out of that and still feed the billions of people we need to feed is a significant challenge. And so, you know, technology is certainly one huge answer to that.
Okay, one final question here that I definitely want to get to. This is coming in here from Jake. How did COVID affect the farming industry in your business in particular?
So it's for us in our business, it's a little bit embarrassing, just because it seemed like there was a more realization of living healthy lifestyles, and therefore eating healthier foods, and therefore buying more organic crops. And so, you know, we've driven a stake in the organic market. And so our demand for organic fertilizer went up dramatically through this whole period. So, you know, we're good. You know, of course, any business could be better, but, you know, we did just fine. But what I would say, as far as the entire farming industry, it was difficult. You know, it was really tough for farm workers who, you know, and then therefore, you know, the farmers that needed their labor. It was really difficult for a lot of the distribution channels. You know, the ag business works in a two-step process. They're very large ag distributors that sell to farmers. We don't actually sell directly to farmers. We only talk to farmers. And so those distributors were significantly affected. And then I would say the last point is this is an overarching point that not only affects farming, but also affects most businesses in the world today. And that is the supply chain coming from different countries in Asia and elsewhere is just a cluster at this point. I mean, it is terrible. You know, normally our deliveries would happen in 58 to 60 days. They're 100 to 105 days today.
Wow.
So that has all kinds of ramifications for companies. I mean, there are many companies that have just had to significantly slow down their business because they can't get, you know, the product. I mean, I don't know the last time you walked into an REI, but just for fun, go walk in and you'll be like, you'll be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Where's everything?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I cannot end this conversation on that note. So I have to end it with, so how will all this impact the future in a good way? I mean, what changes have you guys made that'll be beneficial in the long run? What changes are you hearing about? Leave us on a positive here, Chaz.
Yeah, so I think being prepared in business is probably the best way to ameliorate risk. And so this is one we had never prepared for, really, most of us. We'd never experienced anything like this. And now we know what we're doing, right? And on top of using demand planning from NetSuite, having gone through this experience, it makes it a lot easier for us to see the future.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Chaz, and we look forward to some of that new produce coming out and everything that's to come from Growers Secret. And we just appreciate you joining us here today.
Thank you so much, Kendall. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Thank you for leaving your comments. Thank you for saying hello, telling us where you're tuning in from all over the world. So make sure you also join us next week, because we'll be right back here with another 10 questions with 10 Trees, David Luba. That's happening on Tuesday, April 20th at 11:30 in the morning Pacific time. We'll see you there. Thanks again. Bye.